Hi guys, this is Vidas.
And Ausra.
Let's start episode 191 of Ask Vidas and Ausra podcast. This question was sent by Eddie, and he wrote quite a lengthy commentary about dry acoustics and organ performance, and he asked us to give, our opinion. So we decided to answer this question and discuss this idea about acoustics and organ performance on the podcast, right, Ausra?
Yes.
So let me read it first. He writes, dry acoustics, little if any reverberation with full audience capacity, pose challenging interpretational problems to the performer. Most of the great organ works were composed for highly reverberant rooms such as cathedrals ranging from 3 to even 10 seconds or more. In these rooms, the music is allowed to breathe, naturally leaving mesmerizing and long-lasting memories or impact. It is also technical-wise much easier to perform in these buildings. However, when performing in dry acoustics, like most churches and even some cathedrals in South Africa, the organist is confronted with major problems in getting across the music of the composer in a convincing, natural, and coherent manner. Some rescue methods to resort to may include shortening rests considerably at phrase ends in order to counteract dead or dry breathing gaps and preventing the music to fall apart. Lengthening note values at the end of the phrases to prevent the same as above. Changing or altering the music text not only to achieve a better overall musical realization, for instance, to achieve a better legato when needed, but also to ease very difficult passages technically that would otherwise be almost impossible to execute convincingly and which would be far easier to perform in live acoustics, allowing to move the hands or fingers and feet over the keyboards and pedals with more ease. Needless to say, the original notation and intentions of the composer must at all times be respected with the highest integrity by the performer. Phrasing voice parts unevenly at the end of phrases, in other words, not cutting voices at the end of phrases simultaneously as required by the composer's score, but taking off voices parts, hands, feet, after another, resulting in a much more natural and coherent way without dry or sick gaps in the sound and musical flow. I do not have the time here to illustrate the observations above with examples from the organ literature. I might have more time later. In any case, these suggestions are much easier to demonstrate than to explain in writing. So what do you think, Ausra, about Eddie's ideas?
Well, yes, we are very interesting and might be useful, for some organists. But, I would have to disagree that playing in the live acoustics or in big acoustics is easier.
It depends who is playing, right?
I know, it depends on the concrete room, on the concrete organ, and on what you are playing, actually.
And if Eddie is really experienced in playing at large cathedrals, let's say, with reverberant rooms, then it comes really natural to him.
True. but you need to play well in either room, either with acoustics or without acoustics. Because if you will do something technically incorrect, everybody will hear it in either way, in any circumstances. It doesn't mean, that if you are playing in the reverberant room and you will play something incorrectly, nobody will hear it. Everybody will hear it. and it will sound even worse.
Why?
Because the acoustics, will expand it.
Amplify?
Yes, amplify it.
Let's say you hit the wrong note.
I know.
And it will last for 3 or 10 seconds.
I know it will last much longer, so everybody will be able to hear it.
And remember. You're right here. But probably what he wrote about large acoustics is, remember, we had a short, like small studio organ at Academy of Music in Vilnius in 316th auditorium. Neo-Baroque Alexander Schuke organ with 14 stops, I believe, 2 manuals. And it's really tricky to play this organ because it's really no reverberation, and everything you play is so on the face, on the nose.
Well, I believe it had 12 stops,
12?
if I remember correctly, and couplers.
You know what I added in my imagination? A couple of reeds.
It doesn't have reeds, so.
Yeah.
Well, yes, I remember that time, playing at that room. It was very tricky. It was hard, actually.
So that's what probably Eddie is referring to.
Because you felt like, playing on the ice.
Very slippery.
Yes.
Maybe the keys are not pure wooden keys, but plastic keys.
Yes.
Exactly. So shortening rests in shorter acoustics.
I think this question just explains, one thing, that you need to adjust each time when you play on a different instrument in a different room. And that either dry acoustic or live acoustic has its way to approaching the instrument and to approaching music.
It's kind of similar that you have to approach your music every time freshly, with fresh pair of ears. It's like an unfamiliar environment and also unfamiliar piece. You have to pretend you're playing and hearing this piece, for the first time.
And of course, if you are playing in a dry room, you probably will have to play faster. You probably will have to articulate less, talking about Baroque fugue, for example. And of course, it will be different. You cannot maybe do as much rubato as you would do in the large acoustics.
And the rest at the end of the phrases would be shorter.
But when, of course, there will be also positive things when playing in the dry acoustics. You will not have to worry that things will get messy. And I would say that the dry acoustic is not especially good, but easier to play with other musicians. For example, to play duets, not necessarily organ duets, but like chamber music.
You're right.
To play with soloists like either voice or especially like flute or violin.
Because every part will be audible.
Sure. And it would be easier to communicate while not having a large acoustics.
For beginners, do you think large acoustics pose larger problems or dry acoustics?
I think that's large acoustics because we are not used to it. Because many, come to organ after practicing piano for some years. And it's more like playing piano that way, when you play in a dry acoustics. And large acoustics is so different. So I think it challenges more the young performer.
You're right, Osha. Because not too many people start out in large cathedrals their organ journey.
I know. Let's say 2 seconds of reverberation is not the same as 10 seconds of reverberation.
Have you played a 10-second? Remember?
Yes, I had it. And you?
We both played actually in Detroit.
Yes.
I think it was like more of a 10-second reverberation.
Yes, and it was very nice. What did you play?
I played, I believe I
maybe.
Duraflea suite, yeah. Maybe not entire suite, but
I think
a couple of movements.
two movements, yes. And I played Liszt's BACH, Prelude and Fugue on BACH.
Do you remember any feeling, any experience?
Well, actually, I think that went quite well. And I remember it was a nice experience.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed it actually a lot.
And we can tell you stories about maybe 12-second reverberation after our trip to London, St. Paul's Cathedral this summer.
Yes. Yes, but there are sometimes things that you are thinking you will go and you will find reverberation, and after going to that particular organ, you realize that there is no reverberation or almost no reverberation, even if you play historical organs, as for example we did in last September in Poland.
The old Hildebrand organ from 1717, I believe, in the village of Paslang.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you have to adjust, and that's the beauty of it, right?
I know. You never know, so just be ready to face challenges.
Exactly, you're continuing the old tradition that comes back, from the time of Estampy and
True.
Robert's Bridge Codex, and even earlier that was not written out. So maybe from the time of Hydraulis too. Ctesibios, engineer from Alexandria, who created the first hydraulic organ, started out this tradition, and we're diligently carrying it into the next millennium or even further.
Yes, but what about if you could choose, would you choose a reverberant room or no acoustics?
I would choose a reverberant room.
Yes, it's much nicer. I think it gives sort of liveliness to the organ.
Exactly.
And sort of increases the mystery.
If you're a listener, I would always imagine I'm underneath a swimming pool, submerged maybe 20 feet, and listening to the music of the water and fish and things like that. It's really fun. Of course, I didn't include in my calculations the water pressure, but who cares?
That's right.
What about you when you are listening to reverberant room music and sitting in the middle of the dome, let's say? What do you feel?
I feel well, actually. I enjoy it a lot. And I feel, sorry for churches that has no acoustics. And I always think, what could you do in order to make it better?
Oh, right. You could or eliminate all the cushions.
Yes, and all the carpets, and maybe just destroy some windows and make a solid walls.
Majority of churches won't do that, right? But a little bit of minority will.
I wish that architects, especially in nowadays, would think more about acoustics when building their houses and churches especially.
I think you're asking too much from architects, because sometimes they even don't plan the room for the organ.
I know, and it's just too bad.
Good, guys. Thank you, guys, for listening. We hope this was useful to you. This question was really thought-provoking. And please send us more of questions like that. We love helping you grow. This was Vidas.
And Usha.
And remember, when you practice,
miracles happen.